Very, very much. I want to bring in Dan Geltrude. Geltrude & Company follows the markets and the sentiment very closely. I do think the Federal Reserve Chairman, I don't know how you feel about this, Dan, made it very clear he's not inclined, even in the face of this strong jobs report, to change that interest rate picture. Maybe not hike the 2 times that are already guesstimated to be out there. What do you think?
I think it was a good move by Jerome Powell to really take a wait and see. Look, Neil, right now, the economy, based on the reports that we got today, we are in such a great position. I really think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why would we want to start messing around with such strong numbers and everything is going in the right direction? If he starts to mess around with those rates in terms of raising them, it's only going to lead to less impressive numbers going forward. So I agree with the position that he took today.
Dan, what about the president's position? We've not been able to ascertain whether he really said this, but Chuck Schumer says the president said, I'll keep the government closed for months or even years if I have to on this whole impasse over the wall security. What do you think of that and whether that could come back to bite him?
Well, I think that's a little unreasonable. I don't think the American people are going to accept a partial government shutdown in perpetuity. At some point in time, government has to get back to work, Neil. And I think the two sides, quite frankly, are being perhaps a little unreasonable, maybe more on the Democratic side. But still, we're going to wait and see what the president has to say about how the meetings went today. But I think that we could probably conclude they didn't go so great in terms of trying to come to a compromise. And it's all politics, Neil, and they're not putting country above party, and that's a problem.
Now, traditionally, you always say it hurts the president when this goes on, but I don't know. The longer it drags on, I think it could be a pox on both their houses. But it does show just how disconnected and dysfunctional Washington's become. But the president might seize on it. He did yesterday, meeting with Border Patrol agents and the like, to say, look, this is a life and death issue. Some of them even saying we're not getting paid as this drags on, but we think it's that important. Does he need to do more things like that to get the pendulum to swing back in his favor on this issue?
You know, Neil, what I think here is that the president's base is supporting him not 100%, 1,000% on we need a wall, and they don't want him to bend. And I think you have the other side on the left taking the same position that they don't want them to give in. So I'm not sure either side gets hurt politically by holding their position and holding their ground so steadfastly. So that's where I think the problem is. I think if each side started to look that their support was crumbling based upon the hard positions that both sides are taking, maybe you'd get some movement. So I think the government is going to be shut down for some time until there's some political reverberations that impacts these people.
Meanwhile, back to the market. Do you believe yesterday when we were down 660 points or today when we're up 760 points?
Well, it's just amazing what's going on in the market, Neil. I think everybody is sitting around scratching their head trying to figure out exactly why the market is reacting the way it does. I mean, today there's a basis for the market's move with the report, the jobs report that we got today. But really, when you look at the market swinging the way it does from one day to another, what's really changing of substance? And it's not all that much, so it's really hard to figure out what's going to happen next.
Now, Kevin Hassett, the White House economic advisor, runs the Council of Economic Advisors, hinting that it wasn't just Apple, maybe not just Ford, that a lot of companies are having China impact on their earnings. Was he telegraphing that whether we got a trade deal or not, the reality is the China slowdown is a problem, and it is going to reverberate?
Well, I think we have to look at this and say that the world economy certainly are going to affect our economy. I really believe, Neil, and I've been saying from the beginning, and you and I have talked about this on a number of occasions, that we are going to get a deal with China. And it's not because the president needs to make a deal. It's more because China needs to make a deal. Their economy right now is not where it needs to be. There is pressure there. They need to come up with a deal. They need to trade more than we do. So I really expect when we get to that March deadline, give or take, of what was set, that we are going to have some type of deal, and that the world economies are going to pick up at that point in time. Now, maybe those comments were a little bit of a hedge today, Neil, but ultimately I have no doubt in my mind that we are going to get a deal with China done in some form.
Jerome Powell said he wouldn't leave if the president asked him to. What did you think of that?
Nah, I don't blame him. He's got to have some thick skin with the comments and the tweets that the president's going to make. That's part of the job hazards when you're working for Donald Trump, whether it was in private industry and now in government. I don't think the president has changed his style. I think that he expects performance in how he interprets someone doing a good job, and someone doing a good job means doing it his way and getting the results that he wants. I think Jerome Powell is right to say that even if the president asked him to step down, that he would not do it. The Fed chair has to be independent from the politics that are going on around the country.
Yeah, there is a distinction. The Fed chair, he might get appointed by the president, but he technically doesn't work for the president.
Well, it's no different than the Supreme Court. You know, they have to drown out the noise, Neil, and they have to do what's best in doing their job.
You know, Dan, I said the same thing. If my bosses asked me to leave, I would just say, no, I'm very comfortable in my seat. I don't want to leave.
And I think you should keep that position, Neil.
You know, my stage manager, he said he'll just keep the TVs on and make me think that I'm still on the air. But he had nothing else he could say about that. Right?
I don't think so. You're much too popular to be forced out, Neil.
Please, yeah. All right.
And not that you need the money, but you need something to do. Let's face it.
My wife tells me the same thing. You just talk to the imaginary camera and just see what